Hello and welcome to ACT Prep. I'm your English teacher, Miss Abear. Y'all, we are finally finished with Conventions of Standard English. Today, we are going to dig into a different learning targets and a different skill. Today, we're going to be looking at production of writing. The production of writing test items on the ACT English doesn't actually assess the production of writing. That happens on the ACT writing test. But items in this reporting category do measure the skills that you need to produce quality writing. Production of writing is an exploration of what sometimes is called rhetoric, the art of effective communication and persuasion in writing or speech. In some traditional interpretations of this art, the emphasis is placed on rhetoric's heightening of emotion in the listener or reader. But in the context of the ACT, rhetoric entails the understanding and use of organization, logic, relevance, unity, and cohesion in written English. ACT divides the production of writing into two subcategories: topic development and organization, unity, and cohesion. Both subcategories have multiple learning targets. Today, we are specifically going to look at topic development. Topic development has 4 learning targets. They want you to determine the relevance of materials, identify the purpose of a word, phrase, or sentence, determine whether a text has met a specific goal, and also to use words, phrases, or sentences to accomplish a specific purpose. And today we're going to look at all 4 of those learning targets. So we're not going to go into detail with each and every item, but I am going to tell you which items test which learning targets. So if you want to go back and dig a little bit deeper into some of these, you can. Remember that I put the majority of my focus on instruction on the Conventions of Standard English. Why did I put the majority of my emphasis on teaching in that category? You're right, because it takes more than 50% of the test. This is about 30% of the test. And so our next category that we'll tackle at I think it's the last session of my ACT prep class, we're going to be doing knowledge of language. That's only going to be less than 20% of the test, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that particular skill. So production of writing, I'm going to spend 2 days on, and we're going to talk about those 2 sub-skills along with the learning targets for each one of those. But this is going to give you a little bit more time, or us a little bit more time, to dig into some of the items that are going to be tested and how they're going to be tested. But then I want you to go back on the other items and kind of figure out, how does this look the same? All right? Are we ready to dig in? So let's look at determining the relevance of materials. So this particular learning target is tested in 5 items. You've got item number 9, 20, 57, 70, and 74. Let's look at item 9. At this point, the author is considering adding the following true sentence. Neil Armstrong was the first man to be photographed walking on the moon's surface. Should the writer make this addition? So let's look at the way ACT gives you these answer choices. So you have yes, yes, no, no. So first you have to determine, should that information be added? So let's look at the paragraph. During her NASA experiences, Anderson wrote and produced a 90-minute performance art piece titled The End of the Moon. The performance features Anderson on a candlelit stage standing in front of an image of the moon's surface. Is there anything in here about Neil Armstrong? No. So if you look at what these 2 sentences entail, they're both about the performance, right? So the answer is no. So we know the answer has to be C or D. Neil Armstrong and being the first man to walk on the moon's surface has nothing to do with her performance or the stage or anything that she wrote. Right? So we know that the answer is no. Now let's look at the reasoning behind why we wouldn't. So C says the sentence is not relevant. Well, D also says it's not relevant, so we know that. but it's not relevant to the paragraph's description of the interpretation of the end of the moon. Well, is there a description of the end of the moon? No. It just says that that's the piece that's been titled. And all it's doing is saying that she's standing on a candlelit stage in front of an image of the moon's surface. It's not really giving us a description and interpretation of the end of the moon. So we know it's not C. So it has to be D, but let's make sure. We always want to read everything to make positively sure that that's the reason. The sentence is not relevant to the paragraph's critique of Anderson's struggle to make performance art commercially viable. Oh, I would have never thought that that paragraph was critiquing her ability to make her art commercially appealing. But now that I look back at it, it does. The performance features her on a candlelit stage. We can picture that, standing in front of an image of the moon's surface. So it is critiquing something. It's critiquing her performance art, okay? So while you might not understand that that was the purpose, you can see the purpose after you read through the response, I hope. Because I can see it now, but I need to make sure that you can understand that and that you can see that and understand that. Okay? Let's look at another item just to get a little bit more solidarity in this particular learning target, the relevance of materials. Number 70. Given that all of the choices are accurate, which one provides the most relevant information at this point in the essay? So we're looking at item 70. So we know that it's true that scientists have replicated all stages of TD life cycle. We know that the cells of genus and genes of TD can theoretically live indefinitely. We also know that an adult TD is about as big as a trimmed pinky nail, and TD has spread throughout many oceans of the world. We know all of that information is true, but which is the most relevant piece? So we have to look at the entire paragraph to see which one is the most accurate or relevant information at this point in the essay. In the 1990s, journalists named TD the immortal jellyfish. It is true that scientists have replicated all stages of TD life cycle. Okay? But each individual TD isn't immortal. So it doesn't matter that it's spread throughout many oceans of the world, because we know that that's irrelevant. Does it matter that it's the size of a trimmed pinky nail? No. Or does it matter that the cells and genes live indefinitely? No, because we've already said it's immortal, right? So the answer is no change. I'm going to check to make sure that that's the right answer, because I'm not 100% certain now that I'm looking at it. So let me look at number 70 and my answer choices, just to make sure, because I get that wrong sometimes too. No, I'm wrong. See, some of these can be a little confusing. The correct answer is actually G. The cells and genes theoretically live indefinitely. So that's giving us more information about what the word immortal jellyfish means. Okay? So, I know I got it wrong, but we went back and we fixed it. So, do you see why G is more important to the sentence than what they already have? Scientists have replicated all stages of the TD life cycle. Just because they've done this life cycle, that is talking about the life cycle. Everything else in here is talking about it being immortal. So although the cells of the event are recycled, it kind of goes back to that idea of immortality, during the transformation, they grow into separate organs, genetically equivalent ones. They are clones, so that goes back to that idea of immortality, okay? So this adds to that idea that they can live indefinitely, those cells live indefinitely, G is the best answer. Remember we said that there are correct answers and then the best answer? All right, so item 12 says, which choice provides the most vivid description of Anderson's actions? So let's come over here and find where 12 is. While sweeping the bow over the strings of a viola, Anderson manipulates the music via a laptop computer. Okay, so sweeping the bow is pretty vivid, but is strings of a viola as descriptive as these other ideas? So let's look. Moving a bow over a stringed instrument. Stringed instrument, this is strings of a viola is more specific than an instrument, so we know it's not going to be G. Producing music by playing a viola, so you're going to go from sweeping the bow to producing or playing. That's not very vivid. Rubbing an instrument with a bow. Well, an instrument is not specific enough. So we know J is not the correct answer. So the best answer to give us the most vivid description of Anderson's action is sweeping the bow over the strings of a viola. Okay? Do you see that vivid language? Good. All right. Now let's look at determining whether a text has met a specific goal. There's only one test item here. One on the whole practice test that you guys took. And it's item number 60. So I want you to pay attention because this little note will always be in a box at the end of a text. Okay? This test, this item, question 60, asks about the passage 4 as a whole. If you do not read the entire passage, you're not going to be able to answer that last question, that question that has, it's asking you about the entire text, okay? So suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to provide an overview of the history of the Sequoia National Park. Would this essay accomplish this purpose? So you need to look back and ask, what was the purpose of this particular essay? So we know that it talked about the lack of bridges or the lack of road access. We know that the essay talked about how one particular person really influenced and got road access to this giant forest. So you have to ask, what is the essay's purpose to begin with? Ask yourself that, make that determination, okay? Did this essay accomplish the purpose that you had first thought of? Yes or no? Okay? So if you thought of a purpose and it met that purpose, is that the history of the Sequoia National Park? No. So we know that the answer is either H or J. So does the whole essay focus on Young's military career? No, it's a little bitty part of it. So we know that it's not going to accomplish that purpose, okay? And no, because instead it chronicles one significant part of the park's history, okay? This particular essay only talks about one small piece of the history of the giant forest, right? Okay? If you are not confident in determining whether a text has met a specific purpose, one question is not going to make the difference usually on whether or not you get the score that you're looking for. The difference between a 35 and a 36 is one question. You're right, but if you are that involved in the test and you're that good, you're not going to miss this question. You're going to miss something that's probably if you're that good with the ACT, you're probably going to make a mistake that makes you just want to like pop yourself in the head and be like, I cannot believe I did that. But most people can do this question, but it's not one that is a primary purpose of what the ACT is trying to accomplish. All right, so let's look at another learning target. Use word, phrase, or sentence to accomplish a specific purpose. Okay, so number 22 is talking about the purpose of a sentence or word, phrase, or sentence to accomplish a specific purpose. The previous one was looking at whether the entire text met that specific goal. Okay, so we have the difference between a goal and a purpose, an entire text or a portion of a text, okay? So know that you don't have to know the difference between those two, but we're gonna look at items 22 and 29 because they're a little bit different in the way that the ACT questions are asked you to show that skill. And so, but items 22, 27, 29, and 41 all achieve this particular learning target. So let's look at 22. The writer is considering revising the underlined portion to the following: an image of even black and white lines. Given that the information is accurate, should the writer make this revision? So let's look at 22 that's underlined. So Stripe Spotter converts that section into an image of even black and white lines. Or Stripe Spotter converts that section into a stark black and white image composed of parallel vertical lines. Y'all, this is very vivid, right? The reason we say it's vivid: stark black and white image, parallel lines. That is easy to picture in your head. What if it just said an image of even black and white lines? Can you picture that as clearly as you can stark black and white image? Okay, so no, I would not make that change. Now let's look at the why. Why would we not make that change? Okay, the revision lacks the clarity and specificity, remember I had trouble with that word before, of the description in the original wording. This original wording is very specific and it's very clear. Okay, so we think it's that, but let's read that's actually supposed to be J. Let's read J just to be clear, just to make sure that it's not. The revision suggests that the means through which Stripe Spotter creates images are largely unscientific. I don't think that. Do you think that this revision would make it seem like it's less scientific? I don't think so, because it is an image of black and white lines, of even black and white lines. So no, that doesn't suggest that it's unscientific. So the best answer is H. Okay? Now let's look at one more, and I want you guys to work with a partner, and I want you to talk about number 29 together. Good job. You guys are right. The word humanely is the best answer when you say which choice most strongly emphasizes that the benefit is that it allows researchers to monitor the activities without causing harm. Now, this particular question, even though it's asking whether or not this word will create or whether it accomplishes a specific purpose, this is really a vocabulary question. They don't have a vocabulary learning target on the ACT, but this is vocabulary. Do you know what the word conveniently or inventively or humanely means? That's what they're testing. And the word humanely means without causing harm. Okay? So that, even though it falls under that same learning target as using a word, phrase, or sentence to accomplish a specific purpose, know that that particular learning target can and will test your vocabulary knowledge. How well do you know pretty specific, but generally specific vocabulary words that at your stage of life you should know? Okay? So we have one more in this using a word, phrase, or sentence to accomplish a specific purpose. And let's look at how 41 tests that learning target. Which choice provides the most specific description of the adornments of the shards of Celadon? Okay? So using shards, many of which are adorned with alphabetic symbols and assorted patterns, Shin constructed her mural. Okay? So we're looking at something that is most specific. okay? So let's look at, are alphabetic symbols and assorted patterns very specific? No. So we know the answer is not A. We do need to change it. Korean characters and labyrinth patterns. Well, when I see alphabetic symbols, I automatically think English, right? But they're not. They're these Korean characters. And I don't know what Korean characters look like, so would that be more specific? Yeah, probably so. Do you know what a labyrinth pattern is? It's like a maze, okay? So we think it's probably this, but we're gonna look at the other answer choices. Different letters and a plethora of patterns. The only word that's specific there is plethora, and that's not really that specific. That just means a whole bunch of something. And so we know that that is not specific at all. The last one is numerous symbols and various designs. Well, this one is more specific as far as what kind of symbols or characters. It's also more specific on what type of design. So the answer here is B. That is the most specific description of the adornments, okay? I hope that you will now go back and practice some of the other test items in this particular sub-skill of topic development under production of writing, so that you can score the highest that you can possibly score on the English portion of the ACT. So until next time, happy learning.